Hey everybody, Anders here, producer of Retail on the Go. Today, we're diving into the data behind the cashless revolution with insights from Cantaloupe's 2025 Micropayment Trends Report. Ready? Let's go. Welcome back to Retail on the Go. Anders here, joined as always by your host extraordinaire, Russ. What's up, Russ?
How's it going, Anders? Got my new Cantaloupe jacket. A little loud, but I like it. So we'll see if this becomes a thing. We'll see what the listeners think. Today, but... That was nice. Yeah, you dressed up. I got the collared shirt underneath, but we'll see. We'll see if the jacket becomes a thing. You're gonna have to let me know what the comments say after this one drops.
We'll see. Now, I'll admit, because of my position at Cantaloupe, I may be extremely biased about this episode, but I think we got a great one lined up today. We've got two awesome guests here help us dive into the key findings from this year's Micropayment Trends Report. But before we get started here, Russ, I got a question for you. Do you still carry cash?
I see, and I'll address the biasness in the room. Do I work for the largest transactor of unattended retail cashless payments in the world? Yes. So I feel like I'm not supposed to carry cash. I don't know if that's true or not. But then on the unbiased side, I am, that wonderful millennial term. I don't carry cash, like, ever. Yeah. I mean, even my 5-year-old daughter, she knows what Apple Pay is. I can promise you that. And I think it's probably too easy to spend money now because of Apple Pay, which is probably a great thing for our operators. And we're going to dive into those insights on the Trends Report. Can't talk yet, but no, I mean, I just don't carry cash. I sometimes I forget my wallet, to be honest. My wife gets mad at me. She's like, you're supposed to have your driver's license. And I'm like, yeah, but I have actually, technically, California, I can use a digital driver's license. So I'm good. So as long as I got my phone, I can pay. Hopefully I don't have to show a police officer my driver's license. So we're good. But yeah. Well, Anders, do you carry cash?
I don't, unless my grandpa slips me a $5 when I go visit, something like that. Just a nice crisp one, but that's it.
Cash is no longer really part of my option, and a lot of places don't take cash anymore. I mean, we were just in Vegas, and the Sphere was cashless. There's a lot. You see that a lot. You show up to a place, and it's like cashless payments only, which I know upsets a lot of people. We won't segment that group of the population, but a lot of people get upset about it. Like my dad obviously carries cash constantly, but yeah, I'm out of that
generational thing now.
I'm out of that generation. I can tell you that much. But awesome. Well, no, now that we've got that out of the way, and actually love to hear that in the comments as we drop this episode. Just simple question: do you carry cash? Do you not carry cash? I'd love to just kind of get some feedback on that. But we've got two great guests. They are Cantaloupe people, but they are the Cantaloupe people that make these wonderful jackets and make the beautiful orange cantaloupe stand out everywhere. Just got back from NAMA. If you were there, I can promise you saw us. It was the best thing. I gave a talk on Tuesday before the show started, and I said, come by our booth. I don't really know what number it is, but I promise you're not going to miss us. And no one missed us. It was awesome. But without further ado, to introduce our guests, we have our Chief Marketing Officer, the head of your team, and our other guest team, our fearless leader, Elyssa Steiner. Elyssa, if you want to give a quick intro.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Let's see, I've been with Cantaloupe for a little over 8 years, always led on the marketing side, and just really excited. I know our passion is to continue to kind of how do we drive thought leadership for the industry as a whole. So I'm excited for today's topic, that's for sure.
Oh, me as well, because I'm a nerd and I love the data. I wait for the Trends Report. I wait for the Trends Report to come out. And then our other guest is going to be our Director of Brand and Communications, Sonya. I didn't want to say your last name, Sonya, I'm going to be honest, because I didn't want to say it wrong. So if you could fix that for all the listeners.
So I'm also Sonya.
Dang it. I messed up the first one too. Goodness. It's like I haven't worked here for 2.5 years or anything.
All good. So I'm Sonya Lehner, and I've been with Cantaloupe for about 3 years. I will say the Micropayment Trends Report is a little bit my baby. So I've been doing this for a couple years now with the help of Anders, because I am also Anders' boss. You guys make me look good and getting this information out to customers, and it's really helpful, I think. So, yeah, excited to talk about it.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you guys for taking time to join us. And I know we're going to have fun. And so let's just dive right in. And for everybody listening, the Micropayment Trends Report Cantaloupe puts out every year. So this is the previous year data. So for 2024, it's always fun to see the uptick in certain things. Obviously, our personal favorite thing is to see the trends in cashless payments. But the number that we'll get into in a minute that always blows me away is not just the percentage of payments that are cashless, but the percentage of payments that are contactless. So EMV, tap to pay, you're just tapping that Apple Pay wallet. I know we'll jump into that, but that's just to tease it. That's by far my favorite number to always see. But obviously, there's a continued rise in cashless payments and self-service retail in 2024. One thing that I thought was really cool, obviously, micro markets have continued to grow over the last decade. Now we're getting into smart coolers, and I think there's some differences. Are they micro markets? Are they not? As we still try to figure that out. But for the first time in 2024, micro market sales surpassed $1 billion, which is just crazy to see. And then, I just said our smart stores, our smart coolers, they have the highest average ticket of what, vending traditional micro markets, anything at $4.25, which is, may not seem like a lot, but that's why it's called the Micropayment Trends Report. All of that adds up. So a $4.25 ticket is huge. And Sonya, if you just want to kind of like touch on the base of the beginning with the Micropayment Trends Report, which I'm sure auditors will absolutely have linked with this video. So if you want to dive in yourself, but if you just kind of want to walk us through kind of that beginning and just kind of show the impact of inflation on the ticket sizes and different things like that.
Yeah. So I'll start first, just in case anyone out there has a question about what is a micropayment and why do we keep talking about them like that. So we define a micropayment as any transaction less than $10. And the reason that that's really special is, one, Cantaloupe is a massive processor of these types of payments. We're talking like 2 billion individual self-service transactions across vending, micromarkets, smart stores. And the reason we're looking at that is because, when you're, doing a $1.50, $2 payment at a vending machine, you think about money differently than if you're making like a larger purchase, right? So you don't stop to think about the cost of that transaction in the moment, right? It's very much a convenience trumps costs. And so the reason we have we thought about this in a report format is because, we have all of these transactions, so we can have a really good sense of how consumers behave in those moments when they're making that, really small transaction, those like onesie, twosie sorts of purchases at vending machines, at micro markets, et cetera. So, when you're talking about, I guess where you want me to start. So we'll talk about,
well, actually, one thing I want to say is, so I didn't touch on this, so I'll let you. So I talked about how the smart stores have an average ticket size of $4.25, and that's huge to us, but that may not be, huge or understandable to some of the listeners. So can you kind of break down the difference of, that's the smart store, right? And we think that number is awesome. What was it in traditional vending, and what was the average ticket size in micro markets?
Yeah, so traditional vending, a blended ticket, so what we consider a cash and a cashless, so taking those two averages. The average cash ticket size at a vending machine is a little over $1, maybe like $1.20, something like that. Then the cashless ticket is closer to $2. So you can see like a very big gap between what somebody spends in cash versus what they spend cashless. So the blended average, I think, is around $2.11 at vending machines this year, or from 2024. Micro markets we saw this past year is around $2.67. However, I say that with a caveat that Cantaloupe kiosks specifically, like on our network, they're closer to $3.93. So getting close to that $4 average. And then, like you mentioned, Russ, smart stores have the highest average ticket size at $4.25. So I think one of the big reasons you're seeing such a big difference between vending, micro markets, smart stores is partly because of that product variety, right? So micro markets and smart stores can stock those dry goods, those shelf stable products, those big premium snacks, like the larger stuff, convenience items that you can't typically get out of a vending machine, right? So they allow for more flexibility of merchandising. So you've got bigger ticket items. So, that drives that average up. Is probably the biggest driver of why you see those larger average ticket sizes. And then also this kind of gets into the psychology of cashless payments, right? When you're paying with a card or with your mobile wallet, your Apple Pay, it's your Google Pay, you're really less price sensitive, right? You're not physically tracking the money coming out of your hand and putting it into the machine, right? You just tap and go, right? It's that psychology of just like it's not real almost because it's not physical.
Like I said earlier, it's too easy to spend money these days.
Exactly. That's
physically parting with your cash.
Yeah, that's primarily one of the reasons that you're seeing these higher ticket sizes in micro markets and smart stores specifically.
Nice. And I think just, segmenting vending, where, we talk about unattended retail. That's our fancy buzzword, or self-service. I think it was 71% of all payments at a vending machine were cashless, right? But I said my favorite number that I always look for in the trends report is contactless, meaning tap to pay from whether it's a digital wallet or even tapping the physical card, but you're really not there. But I would say, what was the percentage of cashless payments that were contactless? And then I can't remember, do we actually have the number of digital wallet payments? I'd be curious to see the comparison there.
So no, we don't break down the data into like mobile wallet versus card. We don't have that specific type of data, just because your mobile wallet also is a card in its own sense. So it's hard to parse the data that way. But yeah, when you're talking about contactless payments as a share of cashless payments overall, you're right, Russ. This year it was 77% contactless. Compared to 2023, it was 65%. And then in 2022, the first year we did this full report, it was around 50%. So you're seeing a big jump over the years from in terms of contactless as a share of overall cashless sales.
That's awesome. And then just to kind of I touched on it a minute ago, inflation, obviously. Mm-hmm. No one is paying attention to inflation in our country right now. How do you think that inflation has played an impact in overall just number of transaction volume, but then also just that average ticket size, like we talked about earlier, kind of coming back to that? Do you think that inflation has been, helping that ticket price go up? And then do you think it's kind of scaring customers off? They're not spending as much, or what does the data say there?
Yeah, so I'll go from the operator perspective here first. So yes, you are definitely seeing inflation have an impact on the prices that operators are getting for what they're paying, and then they're passing that on to the consumer. So you are seeing ticket prices go up that way incrementally. It's not necessarily always inflation driven, but you're definitely going to see that probably start to really impact things here soon. But on the consumer side of things, what we actually find is that inflation doesn't have an outsized impact on consumer behavior in micropayments specifically. I'm not going to speak to the economy at large because that's not my area of expertise. But at least what we're seeing from our data is that, we looked at, the annual consumer price index, which tracks how much prices rise on average for consumer goods for the year. This year, for 2024, I think it was around 2.9%. Anders can also confirm that. Correct. And we also looked at the overall average monthly inflation rate for each month of 2024 and mapped that against the overall sales numbers for vending machines and micro markets. But what we saw was that sales over the course of the year remained steady. They weren't affected by, if 1 month the inflation rate rose, we didn't see a subsequent dip in sales at vending machines or micro markets. It really just shows that at least when it comes to convenience, consumers really aren't all that price sensitive. Now, I will say that with the caveat of that was 2024. 2025 is probably going to be an entirely different year. So I can't really speak to, how inflation may change this year, or how that might affect consumers and how they plan to pull back overall spending. But this past year, we didn't really see any effects on the consumer behavior.
Very nice. And before we kind of jump into our next topic of different things, the other number, I know I said my favorite number is contactless payments, which it still is. But the number that the first time I ever saw this report that blew me away, and I know every year, this is the third year we've done it, it just continues to grow at the biggest exponential rate that I think of any of our data points. and an area that Cantaloupe's really kind of focused on. But can you quickly touch on amusements? And for listeners, what are amusements? Amusements are the arcade games that you go to at your local pizza place, or the crane machines that your kids want $1 million quarters for because they just want that teddy bear. Can you break down real quick, as we've really kind of ventured into this industry, this segment of the industry more and more, what does the data say on cash versus contactless, or cash versus cashless, and kind of there?
Yeah, so amusements has always been an interesting one for us to study. So we've been looking at amusements for the past couple of years as well. And I think the difference that you see in consumer behavior at amusement and gaming is the big gap that you see is the average ticket size specifically, right? So at these types of machines, when somebody's using cash, they're paying around 81 cents. But if they're going cashless, they're spending over $6. So that's a huge gap. That's like a difference of over 600% or something like that, right? So basically, the story there is, if you're an amusement operator, if you have cashless on your machine, you're going to be making significantly more money than if you didn't have any cashless payment options at all. Just because again, it's that you tap your card or swipe your card once and you don't think about it, and it allows you to go multiple rounds. You don't have that friction of, oh, let me pull out another dollar, let me pull out my coins, right? It's just so much, it offers so much less friction at the point of payment when you're talking about amusement and gaming.
Yeah, parents probably don't love it, but kids don't have to go run and ask mom for more quarters or dollars that they're scrounging around their purse for. They tap the card once, the kids don't bother them. But so maybe they don't like it. But if you're an amusement operator, you should really like it, and definitely check out. I'll do a shameless plug. Engage Pulse just came out; it's beautiful. But we won't spend any more time on that. The last one that I will say is that looking at the report, that only 22% of payments or transactions, let me say that, at amusements were, cashless. But cashless makes up 66% of the total sales volume. Like, it just doesn't seem like those numbers should even work together. But that one just blows me away. So as much as I do love the contactless one, still my favorite, the amusement one's always one that's really interesting to see. So. But no, Sonya, thank you very much for just kind of like walking us through the highlights and everything else. And like I said, if you want to dive in deeper, if you're a nerd like me and love the data, I'm sure that it will be tagged to this video. But moving on, just for like specifically on the listeners, we're going to bring Elyssa in, because Elyssa, how long have you been in the industry? I know you started with micro markets. You helped bring micro markets to the world. I mean, literally.
It was a part of like the early days. Everybody thought it was the craziest thing on the planet. They're like, they're just all going to steal from you. This will never work. And here we are. I've been in the industry for 14 years in total. I started very young. I always caveat that. That's why I'm still young.
Absolutely. And we just finished up with NAMA. What NAMA was that for you?
Well, there was a couple of years canceled because of COVID. So I think it was probably my 12th or 13th one, somewhere around there.
That's awesome. Best one ever? Best one yet?
Yes, I feel like not only just for us, but it's interesting when I started and just how much technology has completely changed this space, which I think is why you also see the demographic of who attends something like NAMA has completely shifted. I remember like I could have probably counted on like two hands how many females walked the show floor back in the day. And now it's just, there is so much diversity, especially in like youth, that is getting involved, whether they work for tech companies or vending operators, or they're entrepreneurs getting started and are coming to shows like the NAMA show to see all the new tech that they could potentially implement. So it's completely 180'd itself in this space, which is really exciting to see.
Awesome. Well, jumping back to the Payment Trends Report, like I said, obviously still super young, but been in the industry for a long time. What advice would you have? And not all of our listeners are operators. I'd say Andres could correct me on this. The vast majority probably are. What's some like best practices specifically around, cashless payments? What's the importance of accepting contactless payments? Because it seems like that should be a no-brainer to us, right? Because that's what we do. But like looking at it from an operator side, if they're listening, like how important is that?
I mean, I think today you guys heard the numbers from Sonya. I think if you're not doing it, you're really just missing out on all, like at this point, the majority of sales that can happen at your location. I think that it's interesting. You guys talked about amusement and the opportunity in amusement. I don't know how many times we go to like the little bowling alley here, and they have really nice little arcade machines in this little area for my daughter, but she's packing her little purse with all the quarters she has, and half of the quarters get stuck in the machine. It never recognizes it. It's interesting. And I'm like, man, why don't they just put card readers on here? And even when Sonya mentioned you see 6-7x what you would see, if they were just paying with cash or coins, right, in that use case versus if they were using card. And I think sometimes operators, if you're on that operator side of the business, may think, oh, well, it's just too expensive. But your monthly fee is like one of those transactions, right? Like all you need is one guy or gal's parent to, allow them to use it 6 times in one card swipe or tap. And I've just paid for my monthly subscription. So it's really a no-brainer. I think sometimes we get hung up on, oh, it's going to cost me money. But I think you have to really look at, okay, well, what's the return, right? In cashless today, I feel like no matter what your business is, if you're doing airback machines at your gas station, if you're doing a drive-through car wash, I mean, everybody carries their card or their mobile wallet now. And really, it's like, how do I make it really easy to have payments be completely frictionless when a consumer comes up, and make sure they don't walk away because they couldn't pay, right? Like that's not the experience I want as a business owner operator. And so really it's a no-brainer. Card readers are accepting contactless payments really should be kind of the bread and butter to how you run your business.
And I would agree. And, obviously I talk to operators all over the country, and, I'm not saying this is the strategy for all, because I don't have a ton of operators to do this. I mean, I have some operators that have gone 95% completely cashless on not just their markets, but their vending too. Like they don't take coins and cash in their vending because of, the flip side. We talk about, the more payments, the increase in revenue and everything else. But when you look on the back side of it, it's also an operational decrease, right? You don't have to worry about coin jams or bill jams. You're not sending a service tech out to fix a small issue like that. And not to mention, it may be, if you use seed or different things like that, but like you may not know for 3-4 days. So you're not only missing out on those sales, now you've got to send a service tech and pay them to go fix this machine and things like that. So not just from the increase in revenue side, you're also just decreasing your operational expenses, which I think is a huge thing. And then I'd say, majority of, smart stores, obviously they come out with the newest reader because they're brand new. Most micro markets, as they've come out or upgraded, they're going to have the reader that takes everything. But I don't think I have a ton, but I do still have operators out there that have readers that are 4G and they connect and they take, cashless payments, but they don't take EMV. And for everybody listening, that EMV is the new protocol change from the wonderful card providers that whether you can use Apple Pay or Tap to Pay. And just that right there, okay, I have a reader on it.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't take Tap to Pay, I mean, I would guess they're missing 20-30% of potential sales, because what did I say earlier? I don't take my wallet anywhere. And if I can't Tap to Pay with my phone, I can't pay. So I think that one's a huge one there. And then as we've talked about it on previous episodes, Andre's done a great job of finding us guests so far as we've gone about this season of kind of, I don't want to say random, you will say unique is the right thing, but you kind of touched on it. So we've got traditional vending, we've got micro markets and stuff, but what other are ideal locations do you think, Elyssa, as you've seen everything, that are just no brainers, as you said earlier, for cashless payments?
Well, I think is like self-service evolves, right? Like I think what we're realizing coming out of things like the pandemic, even years later, is that consumers want things fast, frictionless, and convenient, right? And so how can we deliver that in a more modern way? And things like smart stores are really kind of solving that for a number of reasons, right? It's giving that modern experience to consumers, but at the same time, it's creating an easier way for our business owners and operators to manage those types of locations. So now, they're eliminating theft when they put in a smart store. But they're giving a really beautiful experience versus a kind of destination of last resort vending machine, right? That's kind of the challenge you always have. You can't sell fresh food out of a vending machine, right? The wheel of death, as they joke about, right? But it's so true. That's the perception by consumers. But if you break all that down and you're giving the consumer today a more modern self-service experience where they can grab things, whether it's food, beverage, beyond that, more retail items, now you start to be able to take these into new locations that maybe historically challenging for micro markets, or because it's all open shelf, or really just vending wasn't what the client wanted or the consumer demographic wanted. But you're thinking like things like now residential buildings, right? Like how can I bring convenience of their own mini kind of C-store at the bottom of their complex? Things that we have some retailers that are doing these in airports where they're providing more grab and go versus having to wait in a line and do it via smart store. We have ones that are, looking at putting these in higher end, like transit stations, right? Again, for a more kind of modern experience, but to give them grab and go items. So I think you're just seeing kind of self-service is really expanding into so many different areas, because it's like, how can I take my brand or my business and drop it into a location where I don't have labor, where I don't have like this overhead cost, it's minimal to service it, and also I don't have to pay like massive real estate to go put in an actual store, right? So I've broken all those barriers down for me as a business owner, and I've been able to just now go drop in a smart store and see potential opportunities of driving new revenue streams. So I think that we're scratching the surface, to be honest. Smart stores are so new to the market, and with technology as it continues to evolve and get almost even smarter, right, on how people are purchasing, I think we're going to continue to see these things take over in higher public locations. You talk about stadiums, venues, like really anywhere that you want to be able to offer kind of grab and go for consumers. These solutions are starting to be kind of that right fit.
And one that popped into my head, we've talked about it on previous episodes. We talked about how gyms are really a unique place that we're seeing, even little micro markets or smart stores and stuff popping up. And Elyssa, because I know you off camera, I know you love to work out. We asked the question earlier, do you carry cash? I said, I don't carry my wallet. Like, if I go to the gym, I don't take my wallet. My phone is like the only thing I want. My AirPods, of course, but like my phone. So like, do you take a wallet to the gym?
Don't. All last week when we were traveling, I just took my phone. And it's funny, you talk about like, just even for me, like I've evolved as a buyer. Like I'm like using my mobile wallet everywhere, right? So the second I'd get out of the gym, all I have is my phone, my water bottle, and I'd go to the Starbucks and I would go get a coffee and just use my mobile wallet, right? And I remember well before COVID and looking at data on our network, I remember contactless being in the single digits, and it was like, couldn't figure out how to get consumers to start getting used to it. How do you get them to use their mobile wallet? How do you get them to just tap? And now I feel like it's the norm. It's like, oh my gosh, your tap doesn't work. I have to grab my physical card. Oh, I don't even have my physical card on me, right?
So I can't even buy anything.
Yeah. So, I did that every morning. I just went to Starbucks and used my mobile wallet. So I think that, gyms are another great example of that. It's all these places, I think we always, as consumers now, we always have our phone on us. Right?
Of course.
We don't go anywhere without our phone. We don't always have our wallet. So I think that that's why you're seeing just this drastic shift.
And not to call this retail establishment out because they have fixed it, but my hobby on the weekend, which really is just like my wife's to-do list, is I like to build things. So like wood and I'll, I don't want my wife to pay absorbent amounts of money for shelves or different things. So I like to build them. So I go to Home Depot a lot. And it was like 3 months ago that Home Depot got tap to pay. And I can't tell you multiple times I'll be at Home Depot, I'll get everything I get up, and again, I don't have my wallet, and I have to leave everything that I got spent walking around Home Depot because they didn't take tap to pay. It was the worst. That was my biggest complaint in the world. They fixed it. So, Home Depot tap to pay good, but not even just in self-service. Like that's a brick and mortar retail establishment that everybody knows. So, and last thing before we ask Sonya to grab her crystal ball and look to the future for 25 and beyond. The last thing I'd love to touch on is, Sonya said it earlier, because these smart stores and things are allowing people to put items and products that they've never been able to carry before, right? Yeah. I've seen some of our gym markets or smart stores, $40, $50 things of protein, yeah. Or some of the residential markets that, they've got $10, $15, $20 items because they're selling Tide Pods or whatever. Yeah. Talking about best practices for operators, could you quickly touch on, Elyssa, like, stocking strategy, like merchandising the machines, prioritizing those higher margin items and higher ticket items that are just going to overall just boost sales and revenue, but at the same time, give consumers better options and things they actually want?
Yeah, I think it's depending on where you place, whether it's a micro market or a smart store, wherever your location is, then understanding that demographic at that location is so critical now, because you do have far more flexibility to stock higher ticket items. And at the end of the day, you're bringing convenience to them. They don't have to hop in their car, especially think about a residential complex. And myself as a female, like if I lived in an apartment complex and it was 10 o'clock at night and shoot, I just ran out of laundry detergent and I was trying to do a load of laundry. If I could just pop down into my lobby of my apartment complex and grab some and go, like, I'm not paying attention to the price, right? Like, it's convenient. And especially as a female at night, I'm not going to go drive or walk to the C store, a couple blocks down, to go get those types of items. So I think it's really kind of understanding the demographic of your location. And then on top of that, like, what are the conveniences that you can bring them that avoid them having to go somewhere else? And so again, like with gyms, you're seeing things like protein powders or higher end protein shakes, or even like accessories, whether it's like workout gloves or things like that, right? That they might need, they forgot, or maybe they just need a new pair and it's right there. So why not buy it, right? So I think that that's just some of the shifts that you're seeing. And with that brings a boost in ticket size, which is like, we have a client that is doing things where everything's above $10 minimum. It's like they're selling t-shirts, gloves, flashlights. It's on a military base. It's very tailored to military personnel who need things kind of grab and go, especially 24/7 when the stores aren't open. And it's doing quite well. So again, I think that you're just getting so much more flexibility with these types of solutions. And with all of the reporting that you get, the visibility you get into the back-end systems, you're seeing what's selling, what's not selling. It allows you to re-merchandise, be more nimble to really kind of delivering what the customers need when they want it, and making those shifts pretty easily from a merchandising perspective too. So technology just has changed the game, and it's really allowed us to continue to get better and better at delivering to consumers, like in the moment when they want something.
I love it. And not just with the technology and payments, that's what we're focused on here, but I mean, just the back-end systems that predict what and tell you what you should put in your machines. Yeah. You don't have to just look at machines and think about it. Now the systems will actually tell you, it's not, do I think this is going to sell? No, the system's going to tell you what's going to sell and what's not going to sell. So, all right, Sonya. Thanks, Elyssa, for that. But Sonya, this is the time. I hope you got the crystal ball ready. We're gonna put it on you, and we're gonna come back, late next year, and we're gonna see how good on the next year's podcast when we break down the payment trend reports. We're gonna see if you were right. So no pressure at all.
We're going.
So, this was for 2024. Obviously, we're already in 2025, and you even said it earlier. It's already been kind of a crazy year, and it's going to be interesting to see what comes out of it. So, with all that said, what do you project or predict is going to be kind of the increases or the biggest increases for 2025 when we look back at this report next year?
Yeah. So, when we're looking at, vending, we see kind of around an 8% growth overall in sales. And then in micro markets, we see around 40%. And so, what this kind of tells us based on, the data from last year is that there will always be opportunity in vending. You're still going to see some growth. It's a great, starting point for a lot of newer operators. It's easier to get in the game with vending. But at this point, we're seeing a lot of operators getting comfortable with the concept of a micro market, starting to branch out and get and expand outside of just vending, right? And so, I think that's where we see a lot of opportunity for our operators is in micro markets. And then while we didn't have any sort of predictions for smart stores because we don't have enough data to really make that call, we are seeing a lot of excitement and a lot of interest in smart stores. So we expect there to be a significant growth in smart stores as well, just because, like Elyssa just laid out, micro markets and smart stores open up opportunities for different types of locations that may not be interested in vending, but may be interested in self-service as a concept. And micro markets and smart stores offer that sort of kind of upscale feel, that more modern self-service experience that consumers are looking for in specific types of locations. So yeah, we see a lot of really great opportunity for operators, but yeah, it's going to be the operators that are diversifying their product lines and offerings to their customers that are going to see the most growth in 2025.
Perfect. Well, like I said, we'll come back next year and see how spot on there. But now, one, I don't even know if we have it in the report, but I'm going to ask you because it's my favorite number, right? And do us a favor when I ask you this question. You said it already, but recap. Contactless, the increase from 22 to 23 to 24.
Yeah.
I'm going to predict, my prediction is what we're at 77%, 100%. It's breaking the 80% mark. Like contactless will make up over 80%. What do you think? How high is that number? Is it 85? Like, what do you think?
So hard for me to say, but based off of
we won't hold you to it, Sonya. We won't hold you to it. I promise.
Based off of the growth that we've seen over the next couple of years, I would say 85% contactless doesn't feel out of the possibility for me.
Cool. We'll see if we were close. I think 85. It's just become too, like we've talked about the whole time. It's just too normal. It's too easy. Like I said, we go to Target and my daughter's like, Daddy, can I use Apple Pay? Like, she doesn't ask me for the card anymore. She's like, can we use Apple Pay? So I got to Face ID it, hand it to her, hope that it doesn't time out. And then we've talked a little bit, especially you, about the psychology, and I love that because marketing is psychology, right? But how do we think there's going to, consumer expectations are going to change, specifically with self-service retail? We've used the word frictionless many times. Yeah. And I'm assuming what you're going to say, but are those expectations just going to increase across the board for consumers?
I think so. I mean, you're at the point, you've mentioned it multiple times throughout the episode of, it's self-service or even just cashless is really just picking up across the board. This idea of frictionless payment experiences, convenience. I need what I need right now, and I don't want to wait for it. I don't want to deal with another person. I think you're seeing that attitude really come to the forefront. And you think about millennials, Gen Z, even Gen Alpha, who are our new cohort of teenagers. Like, they're all digital natives, right? So everything's going to be on their phones. Everything needs to be convenient to get from your phone, both online and in person. So yeah, I think you're just going to continue to see the desire for self-service experiences from the consumer really continue to just explode.
Yeah, and you said it. I sometimes I hate this, right? But like, it's that psychology, like especially Gen Alpha. I don't even know if I knew that was the right term now, but like, they just don't want to talk to people. Like they just don't want to. Like, that's why you see the self-service kiosks in McDonald's and all the fast food restaurants. It's like people just don't want to talk to people anymore, and whether that's a good or bad thing, I don't know. But that's just the nature of the world we live in, and we've got to keep up. And on that, the last thing I'll ask you in terms of looking ahead is how not just operators, but brands as well. How do they need to prepare for that scary turn that I think like my dad and them were just terrified of? Because we're going to get there, a fully cashless future.
Ooh, that's hard to say. I mean, the first thing for operators, or I guess is kind of what you're asking from the operator standpoint. I mean, it's one, you have to first embrace cashless, right? You have to, we're seeing in vending kind of a 70-30, kind of leveling out at like a 70-30 split of cashless versus cash. So there's always going to be a demographic that wants cash, right? So you do need to cater to them, but the majority of consumers want cashless. And so you've got to cater to them first, because that's where the majority of your sales are coming from, right? So you've got to just dip your toes in. You've got to embrace that your consumers and future consumers expect cashless, and you got to bite the bullet if you've been resisting, or you've got to go all in if you're already there. So cashless is the future. There's no resisting it, and you just got to jump on board if you're not already there.
Well, awesome. Well, Sonya, thank you very much. And as we kind of wrap it up, just to like touch on a few different things, I think, the biggest takeaways that I would say from this year's trends report is that, one, micro markets, they jumped over $1 billion in sales, which is crazy. That's a big number that everybody can think about. And that, smart stores, I'm really curious to see next year, after we have a full year of data, right? What does that average ticket size end up being? Right now it's like $4.25, which again, doesn't sound like a big number, but in our world, that's a big number. And then, of course, my favorite personal one, we're up to 77% of all cashless payments are contactless, and we think 85. We're going to stick with that 85 number, but I think it's huge. And then the last one, like I said, the one that always surprises me is, what is that amusements? As we're putting more and more readers out there on amusements, what is that average ticket size going to be? Does it maybe stay around that $6 range just because we get more out? But I think the better number to look at is, where it only made up 22% of payments. Does that number exceed 30% next year? As we continue to have more amusement operators roll that out, I think it'll be fun. But again, thank y'all so much for taking the time to join us. Obviously, I work with you guys, and y'all put together all these beautiful reports and all the fun sales collateral and data for us to use as sales guys. So we obviously always thank y'all for that. But like I said earlier, if you're nerdy and you just want to geek out on the numbers and the data, like I do, go to Cantaloupe.com. You can download the entire full Micropayment Trends Report. I'm sure Anders, like I said, is going to tag it in the post as well. But we really actually encourage you to engage with us. Like, not only tell us what you think of the jacket and if I should keep wearing it, but also what number or what data points stood out to you the most in this episode. Just drop it in the comment section. We'd love to chat with you about it. Just hear your thoughts on it. And then, other than that, we really appreciate you as always listening. You can find us, the Retail on the Go podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. I don't even know where all that is anymore. But think about it. What stood out to you the most, and let us know. But until then, we'll see you next time on the Retail on the Go podcast. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.